Troublemaker's just coming in.
The storm is coming.
I see the storm. It's not passed over yet. The storm is passing over.
The storm is passing over.
The storm is passing over.
The storm is passing over. Out to you.
Will you reach out to me?
All of our voices and all of our visions.
Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make
such sweet harmony.
Come on now. Divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Beautiful, beautiful, thank you. Magical. Gosh. This is something else. I have to tell you, we are talking about imagination today, and I want to welcome you to All Souls, to our Humanist service. The point, we call it, because we get right to the point and talk about what's most important to us. We don't embellish it with a lot of stuff that you find in superstitions and other things that you can find in a lot of religion. And a lot of churches and houses of worship and all of those things. We don't even, we invite everybody with your questions, with your doubts, with your hopes, with your dreams, with your beliefs or disbeliefs, but everybody's welcome here. Seekers, people who are figuring it out, people who are clear about what they believe, naturalists, and I say naturalists, sometimes people think I mean nudists, you know, I know that. You're welcome to, but please wear clothes while you're in here, at least in church, but at least in All Souls. So, but welcome to everyone who's here, also those online. It's great to have people who join us from all over the country, all over the world, really, every week. And who would have thought Carlton. Who would have thought that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we'd have a humanist service? And, of all places.
Yep.
And then, California or other places you would imagine it. Chicago, even Minneapolis, but Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. No, you didn't say thank God. You said thank goodness. That's in the spirit of this humanist hour. And I do want to say that when we talk about imagination, could you have imagined, Carlton, that you would be here in a humanist service 20 years ago? All right.
Not even at All Souls. 20
Yeah,
years
at
ago.
All Souls, let alone in the human. So I want to welcome you. I'm glad that you came, that you're with us. This is a time to really enhance our lives through just being together in community, through inspirational words, through great music from amazing musicians, stories for our kids. So I'd ask you to join me in the words of our covenant. This is something that we say when we gather here at All Souls. It's just the promise that we make to one another that make us a community together. Please join me. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Beautiful, beautiful. So for our chalice, we've been lighting a chalice throughout the pandemic, and I think it's something we're just going to keep doing because we've really enjoyed it. And the chalice, some people don't know the history, but it combines two symbols. The chalice is usually a cup or like a wine vessel, right, which is a symbol of community that goes down through many centuries. And then the flame, which is a symbol of freedom. So here at All Souls, we combine community with freedom. Freedom to believe, freedom to question, freedom to be in community, and all kinds of freedom. So I'm going to light our chalice, and I have these words. As we light our chalice this morning, I invite you to imagine that we live in a time and in a world where we all turn to our neighbors in mutual aid, trading eggs for milk, checking in on the elderly or those who live alone. Imagine that each of us feels called to wonder, what is my place in this time? What am I called to do? Now, what does the world need of me? Can I imagine now, in this time, in this day? And imagine that if instead of saying, but Marlon, this isn't the world that we live in. What if we were to say, it's not the world that we live in yet? Mm-hmm. And what if we imagine that what we do here every week helps bring about such a reality into life? Just imagine. Welcome.
Beautiful.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Shannon Boston, your religious educator, and today we're introducing September's theme of vision, what you can see, not just with your eyes, but with your mind and with your heart. Our story today is called The Magical Yet. There are days when your dreams haven't come true, or you're upset by the things that you can't yet do, or you've lost or failed or cried just a bit. You're tired of waiting and ready to quit. Like that shiny new bike you couldn't ride. It didn't matter how hard you tried. You couldn't pedal, you couldn't steer, and you couldn't get that bike into gear. Then when you thought you were on the right track, you popped a wheelie and fell on your back. And now you won't ride. No way, not ever. No riding for you. You'll walk forever. Don't give up now. There's a major game changer, a most amazing thought rearranger, someone to show you how good you can get. Now introducing the magical yet. With this yet's magic, you can begin to see that you're going beyond where you've been. There are so many things that you've learned to do when you didn't know that the yet was with you, like when you babbled before you could talk, or how you crawled before you could walk. Yet's a dreamer, a schemer, a hoper, a trier, a maker, a doer, a gotta fly higher. This yet finds a way, even when you don't, and knows you will when you think you won't. Yet doesn't mind warm-ups, fixes or flops, do-overs, redos, stumbles and stops, yet knows there's mistakes, some big and some small, but with yet, you're sure to get over them all. Be patient. You can't do it all overnight. Some things take days, months, or years to get right. But if you keep leaping and dreaming and wishing, waiting and learning and trying and missing, with the yet as your guide along the way, you'll do all the things you can't do today. Now you're bolder and braver and starting to see with the yet you can get where you want to be. You finally did it. Yet knew you could. You're not just riding, you're getting quite good. But don't stop now. You've got so much to do. The good news is this yet grows with you. So no matter how big or old you may get, you'll never outgrow and you'll never forget. You can always believe in the magic of yet. Come, children, let's go discuss what we haven't been able to do yet, but with some vision and a little practice and a plan and a magical yet, we might just be able to accomplish it.
I want to invite us into a moment of silence together. We don't spend enough time in silence. I think we're bombarded all the time by noise and distractions, and this is a chance for us to sit. And there's something about doing that with other people that enhances, I think, the experience of the silence, which is not always the absence of noise as much as it's just the quiet that we create by not talking. Before we go into the silence, our online audience has asked us to lift up some folks. Pat Neal asked us to lift up his sister Katie, whose husband Dan is in the last days of his life after a battle with cancer. And Christine Glean asked us to bring our hearts to her friend George's sister Roberta. And Elizabeth Gutierrez asked us to lift up her friends and her health. And let's see. Also, Stacy Lee, who's online, asked us to lift up our member who's been engaged with us online for a number of months now, who's from Rwanda, and his family had to flee Rwanda due to religious persecution. For thinking like we think, and so he and his family are now in Uganda, and his 9-month-old baby is going to have surgery this week. So he wants us to be sending our positive energy in their direction. So let us, thinking of all those people and thinking of all those folks in our own hearts and hopes and prayers and wishes in our own hearts, let us take a moment of silence together.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of your creation. What you'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be. Simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. You want to change the world, you're doing it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be.
Such a cool dude and a gifted guy. We have some of the most fantastic people, musicians. The band is great. And all the services. You guys just have a flow. He was at my house. Both of Dave and Rick were at my house this weekend. Of course, David's been in my life for almost 40 years. Rick, since I've been here, but when he always plays the piano when he comes, and he just sets a tone. He loves to just go and sit. I wish that I could do what he does. These guys leave the planet and go somewhere to some alien space And music means to muse, it's called the science of the musings. So they think and they feel. I think maybe sometimes they stop thinking and they go to some other, oh, my mask. You know why we wear these masks? And we're going to talk about vision and imagination. Oh, Jesus. We wear these because we imagine we might get sick, or we imagine we won't. You have two images in your mind when you put them on. And images can have two sides or be two sides of the same coin. Vision is the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination and with wisdom. But a lot of the things we do inadvertently are based on imagination. We imagined last night that we would be here today. And we imagine, particularly in this service, that we'll be through in 5 minutes and go home. So that's what we like a lot about this service. I never imagined I'd be here in Tulsa 52 years ago. It just wasn't on my radar. I never imagined I would be at All Souls when I came here 52 years ago. I never imagined that I would ever speak in this humane service. Sometimes humanitarianism is the most crystal form of humane thinking. I think religion, if I could use that terminology, is moving this direction where it's less religious and more relational. I salute your minds and your attitudes about disrobing from any attachments from which you should detach in order to maintain and then detain lack. You're thinkers and not just feelers, but you do have feelings. The universe doesn't just judge us so much by what I often say by what we feel, but by what we think about what we feel. What we think about what we think about what we feel, and then what we think about that. Because thoughts are creative, they're inventive, and thoughts are things, putting things out there. That's why I encourage you to be careful and aware of what images you allow to rest in your consciousness, because images are like magnets. They literally draw you to them. And they embrace you, and sometimes you awareingly or unawareingly embrace them. Imagination is based often on presumptions and assumptions or suppositions. And you should stop and think how many images you have or suppositions, things that are supposed to be, or that you assume or presume are or should be, that really are inaccurate or unrealistic or in some ways non-existent. How many areas of your life are you living that is totally detached from a more accurate reality? We make stuff up. That's not all bad, but you just need to do it intentionally and awareingly. We often do it both ways, usually more unawareingly than intentionally. I, at my age in life, am trying to live more intentionally, more deliberately. Your essence, your essential self is your permanent rather than your accidental self. The essence of who you are has always been, and I think will always be. Now, there's an entrapment in this fleshly frame, an imprisonment, if you will, sometimes. And the other imprisonment is the thought processes around which you develop your realities, or the way that you interpret them. You're very powerful. We all are. We don't realize how powerful. When I talk about the power of imaging or the power of imagination, there is a power which is an ability, and we don't realize often how able we are or how we enable imaginations. Again, are you protecting yourself from a disease, or are you imagining that you'll never get sick, at least of COVID, which is a form of the flu? What are the contagions in life? Imagination is one. A contagion is not always negative, but thoughts are contagious, attitudes are contagious, ideologies are contagious. You imagined, most of you, what you were going to wear today. Obviously, some of you didn't, but in general, no, I'm kidding, because I'm that little stuff slips in every once in a while. You imagine what we're going to do in a few minutes when we get out of here, what you're going to do tomorrow? I wore white slacks, and Walter Armstrong and the other sorts, because after tomorrow, we're not supposed to wear white anymore. It didn't say you couldn't be white after tomorrow, but we can't be white all year long, and perhaps you'll forget too. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. Why is that's a dumb? I don't know where they came up with this. Don't wear white after Memorial Day. That's what I was saying. Labor Day. Some things you shouldn't buy into just because they're buyable. It's like going to the mall. There's a lot of things you may be able to afford that you're not interested in. Or the reason they play happy music when you go to the grocery store or other stores is because it puts you in a happy, sort of lackadaisical, happy-go-lucky mood, and you buy 3 different flavors of ice cream when you have one favorite. Or you buy Cheerios, Wheat Chex, Trix, 5 different kinds of cold cereal just because the music says be liberal. And there are times when you should. And there are times when you should be less liberal and a little bit more restrained. It varies. What I like about the humanist concept is that it tends to be humanitarian as well. I think if Jesus really existed in any way, he would have been a sacred humanist. I like to consider myself that way because that's more humane. Religion can be very divisive. And this church is probably, of all, and I've been in, you can imagine, after 52 years of ordained and licensed ministry, I've been in thousands of churches and preached in thousands of situations. One of the reasons I'm here and we're here is not only because the pastor, who is a great visionary himself, invited us, but this is closest to the way I think. It's not always closest to the way I feel, but it's the closest to the way I think. And it has expanded my consciousness, and I hope that when we get to interact, we expand each other's consciousness. There is a lot of evolution going on in the earth, but there's also a lot of dissolution going on. There is no evolution without dissolution. Some things have to dissolve in order for other things to evolve. And even at my age, I'm still feeling evolutionary. I'm not yet retired. I sometimes feel a little retarded. I mean, slow in the way I pick up things these days. But I'm refired. I'm really ready to move to whatever my next iteration is. I want to reiterate. I don't want to repeat a lot of things. I want to replace some things and repent about some things. When I mean repent, I mean to rethink some things. And I'm loving it. I feel divine alteration, which sometimes are divine altercations. Because you're thinking and you're feeling sometimes, or you're knowing, like all of us know by imagination that we're okay. We don't always believe it. You know you're amazing. You know you're magnificent. You know you're courageous. You know you're secure. The problem is most of us don't believe any of that. But when somebody says that you're not cool, then you defend your coolness. And if they say you are cool, you say, well, you don't really know me. We play the devil's advocate back and forth. What do you imagine is best for you? Not the bitterness, because bitterness, the distastefulness, sometimes you remember more than something that appeals to your appetite. And we spend a lot of time wrestling with the bitterness and ignoring the betterness. I imagine a better world. I imagine a better, broader reality. I imagine that I can improve. I remember when I was 12 years old and I lived in the ghetto. We'd born and reared in the ghettos of San Diego, they call Southeast San Diego, predominantly African American and Mexican American community. One Saturday morning, we were cleaning out our drawers, and it's always a depressing time. My mother would insist that everybody, all 6 kids, clean their drawers out, and that can be, you need therapy after you try to organize all that stuff. But I heard pop, pop, pop. It sounded like firecrackers. I didn't think much of it because you heard those kinds of things in that community. But this was on a Saturday morning. And then I heard beyond that, "Wake up, Junior! Junior, wake up! Junior! Junior, wake up!" So I knew it was something more tragic than a firecracker. I ran out of the house, and 2 doors down on our street, there was a woman in a drunken stupor, sort of, crying and slapping Junior in the face, who was dead on her lap. His head was laying in her lap, and she kept striking him. I was 12 and stunned and frightened. I was trying to work up the nerve to approach him and her and then go into the house. I could smell the stench of alcohol, really strong. But I finally was able to get there. No police. It was almost an hour before police came. It was 9 hours before the coroner came. That's the way it was in our neighborhood in those days. But I walked up there. My heart was pounding, and I stepped across him and her into the house. And the landlord had come by to collect the rent, who happened to also be African American, and they got into an altercation, and the landlord was trying to shoot a man who was my dad's second cousin, and I didn't even know he lived with that woman in that house. He was in a drunken stupor in the corner, crying and mumbling something. There were broken bottles and blood on the wall, and it was a very trashed room. And I just got this nauseating feeling. The room began to spin around me. And I imagined then, I said to myself, one of these days, I'm going to get out of here. And I'll never come back again until I can make a difference. I imagined a different world for me. But I remember thinking, I don't know what I want to be, but I sure know what I don't want to be at that age, which is this. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't want to be violent or violated. I don't want to be insignificant in the earth. I don't want to be confused. And I eventually was able to walk back out, stepping over the trash on the floor. The young man was still laying in his mother's lap. And as I left, people were starting to gather. By the time the coroner got there, hundreds of people literally had walked from surrounding neighborhoods because they heard about it to look at this situation. It was tragic. But I kept thinking about it. Eventually, the rest of my family came down, and it was just, that wasn't the first time that kind of thing happened in that neighborhood or the neighborhoods around us. But I made a decision. I imagined being free from that mentality. I imagined being free from that being a normal occurrence around me or around us or among us. And I have traveled the world since then and seen many people and experienced so much joy. And a lot of what I'm experiencing right now is imaginary. Scripture says that there's a reference in Scripture that we're made in the image and likeness of God. If there's any truth to that at all, and I don't even believe in that God anymore, because that God said he didn't like us and said, I repent that I made you, and I changed my mind, I resent and regret. So that kind of stuff, religion, if there was a humanist service I could go to, I'd go to it. I think that's what I'm in, right? Some of you came to those conclusions a lot earlier than I did. But I just decided that I was crippled in my thinking, cryptic in my thinking. I had to reevaluate stuff. I had to reevaluate myself, my soul, my psyche. And I'm telling you, I've never felt freer in my life. I didn't know this freedom was possible. And if it was, I didn't think it was probable. It was not legal to be this free. It was illegitimate and unholy and unrighteous. And at 70 years old almost, I'm reconsidering all of that. And you helped me do that with your attitudes and your consciousness. And if I picked your brain, and I have a few of you, I learned something. And I salute you and celebrate you and recognize your uniqueness and mine. And we don't have to go along to get along, right? We can mind many of the same things without having the same mind about everything. Sarah Jordan Powell sitting right there. She had the same background as I am. She ain't got no business in here. She came up in the Church of God in Christ like me. She's in it past 80. But she loves this service. And of course, she backslid years ago. No, I'm kidding. She feels that the stimulation that occurs and the less religiosity, we've always imagined, she and people like us, that we could be freer. I think America is shifting. It's very difficult right now. There's a lot of sloppiness out there. Our democracy is being challenged. And I often say, and I don't want to sound political, but sometimes with some of the MAGA type people, make America great, they really mean make America hate again legally. Hate anybody you don't like, anything you don't like, any ideology you don't like, and then be violent or violate those who are different. We've got to get away from that. We can work this and walk this thing out. I was in Oklahoma City last night, and I was talking to some very creative people who are looking, talking about, we were talking about ballots more than bullets. We cannot become one nation under guns. It cannot be in guns we trust rather than in God, whatever God is, we trust. Religious people tend to be very, very jaded. And so I'm imagining a less religious world. And I'm seeing it happen. You may not see it happen to the degree that but I'm traveling all across the country, and more people are interested in what I'm thinking and talking than ever. Tulsa, for this church to have survived here almost 100 years, over 100 years, and to be as progressive as it is, that's a softer term than liberal, but liberal just means liberated. You bunch of liberals. What if they said, you bunch of liberated people, you're too free? It takes guts to be free. Freedom is not for cowards. Talk to me, somebody. It takes courage to be free. It takes courage to own your truth and honor your truth. Sometimes they mistake our confidence for arrogance. And sometimes confidence comes across as arrogance, but sort on through it. I was in Los Angeles last week for to do an interview for a documentary for Tammy Faye Baker. I don't know how many of you remember her. She was known for her eyes and her eyelashes and her views and her vision. Her son, Jay, actually called me. I appeared on PTL many times, TBN, CBN, that whole fundamentalist Christian world. So that's why I say for me to come out of that world and to come here and feel comfortable and be received and accepted here, Marlon and I have spent a lot of time discussing our journeys. What I like about him is he's creative, he's adventurous, he's interested, he's not stayed and stuck and stagnant. He's a visionary, he's a thinker, and he's one of the coolest dudes I know. He's been on vacation, so he's a little more tanned. He realized he can't be white after tomorrow either, so he got a nice little tan. But we need that kind of visionary leadership. To be a pastor, you have to tolerate a lot. There's a lot of babysitting involved in it, because I did it for 30 years. And people insult you and say things that are painful, but you imagine that it can be better, and that people can be better, and that we can live. Anyway, we had that conversation out there in Los Angeles, and while I was out there, Stevie Wonder texted me. I had texted him that morning. Now, how do you text, and why would you text a blind man? But that's the kind of relationship we have. And not only do we text each other, he actually FaceTimes me. And the dude can't see. So I said, well, how you going to FaceTime me? You can't. He said, man, I have a vision that you don't have. I hear things that you don't hear. I think things that you don't think. I have no apologies for being blind. My blindness has given me vision that seeing people don't have. Wow. And so I've asked a lot of questions about what do you see? Close your eyes for a second, everybody. Just close your eyes completely. Now, don't open your eyes. What am I wearing? Now, you are seeing without vision. How many things do you see that you don't see? Open your eyes now. A lot of you mentioned the striped shirt. It's a little bit more attractive than the boring one that Pastor has on this morning. But you remember that because it stood out. But you do have vision that you cannot see. You memorialize things. You remembered what you saw. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not as good. But remember how powerful, as I stop, you are with the things you see or perceive. You are perceptive. You are not only imaginary, or you don't only have imagination, you are imaginary. I imagine you'd be here today. I imagine you'll be somewhere when we finish. I plan to be here tomorrow, not at church, but I'm going to be somewhere, and Tuesday. So embrace the image. Wrap your arms around yourself, and I embrace the image that I am. And don't be afraid of your imaginations unless they are frightening, because they can take you. Some things, I used to tell folks in the fundamentalist world, that some things we say we're giving to the Lord, and we're giving to our lungs and our liver and our kidneys, and it eats away at us. You are powerful. Embrace that power. You are creative. Embrace that creativity. You're magnificent. Embrace your magnificence. Don't apologize for it. Salute yourself. Celebrate yourself. And when necessary, separate yourself from the deadly negative emotions that suggest otherwise. You got this. You are this. I have great respect for you. Great admiration of you. We here at All Souls, I imagine that we become the most pronounced, if not the most prominent, the most pronounced voice in this fundamentally conservative town. Pretty tough to have lasted this long and to be the largest Unitarian Universalist church in the country. We're a megachurch on megachurch stands. I spoke at First Unitarian in Houston the other day. They knew who Marlon was. They knew who we were. They knew the church. They wanted me there because they know I'm associated with this place. And they gave me a nice honorarium. So God bless and keep everybody in the whole world. I'm coming back next time. I love you. Peace and blessings.
Right, yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Makes my heart sing. We're gonna take up an offering for the Tulsa Cares. They do work with people with HIV/AIDS in our community here in Tulsa. So please give generously when the basket comes around. I have a few announcements. One is if you're driving a burgundy Kia SUV, you have nothing to worry about, but you do want to pick up your keys in the office after the service because you left them in your car. And so they know because the car was running and they turned it off for you and put the keys in the office. So
They were in a hurry to get in here. Stand up. We want to know.
no, you don't stand up. I'm trying to make it very anonymous for you.
That's right. To get in here, man.
Couple things. Today is the last day. If you want to join one of our Wellspring groups, it's a small group, 10, 12 people that will be exploring different themes throughout this coming year. It's a great opportunity. They meet on different days, different times, so there's a time for everybody. But it's a great opportunity to meet some people and really have real deep conversations and important conversations. So I highly recommend it. You begin by going to one of these retreats, and this is the last one before we start this new series. It's at 2 o'clock today. So if you can make it back here at 2 today or on Zoom, or no, it's on Zoom. It's just on Zoom, I think. So join it on Zoom, and then you can become a part of one of these groups. I highly recommend it. If you're not a part of one, I think you're really missing out. If you are in 4th grade or higher, or know someone in 4th grade or higher, and you want to sing in our children's choir or youth choirs, they are doing vocal placements this week. They had to add more because there's more and more kids coming. It's exciting. Working with David up here and other great musicians. Your kids will never be the same after experiencing working with these musicians. And then Booksmart Tulsa is having a book talk here this week. If you remember the amazing author Beth Macy, New York Times bestselling author of the book Dope Sick, which was about the opioid crisis, she's just come out with a new book called Raising Lazarus, and fabulous book, and she's going to be here talking about that on Tuesday night. It's free, 7 p.m. And then if you want to be part of the Young at Heart group, which meets on Thursday this week at 11:30 for lunch and games and things like that. It's another way to meet people here at All Souls and just to have fun. And lastly, next Sunday, I'm going to be back. I've got a message about dream. It's time to dream again. We have been putting off a lot of dreams, a lot of travel, a lot of things that we might do throughout this pandemic. And I want to talk about the fact that it's time to dream again as a community and as individuals. So I hope you'll be here. We've got some great musical opportunities. I think a choir is going to be singing, at least in the 10 o'clock service. I don't know if they'll be in here, but lots of fun stuff happening next Sunday. It's going to be a big Sunday. I hope you'll invite your friends and don't miss out, and come bring your children. And let us receive our offering. If you do want to make a gift also, the reason we give away our offering plate every week is because members of our community will make a pledge to the congregation and then pay that pledge either online with a credit card or mail in a check. You can also, there are envelopes in the back if you want to make your pledge payment to All Souls or make a gift to All Souls. You can do that. Just make sure you put it in the envelope and mark it as such. But all other monies that you give today will go to help Tulsa Cares and people who really need it. So thank you.
Sunday and the world. Thank you, choir.
As we close, I want to invite, if you're online, you can stick around on Zoom and enjoy some friendship and fellowship with others and talk and meet some interesting people. And if you're here, hope you'll be able to stick around for a few minutes. There's refreshments. We'll open these doors. There's refreshments. There's a bookstore in there and other things. And folks, if you're here for the first time, we have a gift for you out there. in the foyer, a little package with some gifts for you. So I hope you'll stick around for that. Hope to see you in the week. There's lots, as you heard, happening. There's one thing that I want to leave you all with that you have said before, and I think it makes a big difference on this theme. You said once that we don't only spell words, but words put spells on us. And so sometimes someone said something to you like, well, you're not a very good artist, or you can't do music, or you know, something about, you know, who you are, how you look, what you do, and it will cast a spell on you. It may not be true, but all of a sudden you live as if it's true. That's how the imagination can work against us. And so as you go out into this week, and as we think about this theme of vision, I want to invite you to crack the spells and break the spells that may be holding you back from being all that you can be in this time in your life. No matter how old you are, no matter where you are on your journey, this is the day that you've been given. This is the life that you have. We don't know how much longer we have. Everybody thinks they're somewhere in the middle of the book of their life, but we don't know. We could be in the last paragraph. We could be in the last page of the last paragraph. We could be in the last sentence of the last page of the last paragraph, rounding our way towards the period, and we don't even know. We don't know. But what we do know is that we are alive right now in this day. We've got the breath of life in us. Use it well until we meet again. Thank you.
Running away with me. It was just my imagination running away with me.
There it goes now. There it goes down the street. Gonna take defeat. I'm gonna take defeat and turn it into relief. Just my imagination running away with me. It was just my imagination running away with me. One more time. And just my imagination running away with me. It was just my imagination running away with me. Good night, everybody. It's been really fun. See you next Sunday.